Next to me is sitting Veine Winkvist. He is an expert who worked in the waste management area in Sweden and all over Europe for 25 years. And he is a member of the board in the International Solid Waste Association. He has seen the waste management system in Astana, and now we decided to make a short interview with him to get to know his opinion about the system and how it can be improved. So, Veine, thanks for giving us this time. The first question would be, you've seen this waste collecting containers installed in the households. So we have two types of containers, one for mixed waste and another for solid waste. So authorities call it wet waste and solid waste. So solid waste mainly being packaging waste. And we also have some payback centers subsidized by operator ROP, EPR operator here in Kazakhstan. And there are some conflicts of interest between these two systems of waste collection. So what is your opinion about this and how could it be solved?
Mm-hmm. Well, I saw this also in practice, in operation, and I would think that in order to get the most quality of the waste which you are sorting, for example, if you are looking after the PET bottles, I think it's important to sort it out at source as early as possible, because whenever you mix it in a container and in a plant, it will be polluted and the quality be less good as it used to be. So I would prefer to find out a system where such items like the PET bottles can be collected before it goes into a container.
Okay, thank you. Also, if you remember, we discussed the quality of collection in the source. So not many people are sorting out in the source.
Yes.
Not many people putting these packaging materials into yellow containers. And some people put food waste also into yellow containers that makes bad this quality of the waste. And how this issue could be solved? Should it be some informational work from the local authority side, or should it be some other financial instruments to motivate people to do right things, to sort it rightly?
I think there are two different issues actually. I think we can try to increase the recyclability and the recycling rates of, for example, very clean material like plastic bottles, in terms of giving some kind of economical incentives, like a payback system or deposit fee system or whatever could be introduced. That's one way. Otherwise, I think it's still important to have increased campaigning for public awareness in this area. I think sometimes perhaps you have to go out and educate people at the place. It's not enough maybe to just send out a flyer or to go via social medias or so. Maybe you have to just talk to people to educate them and see in every house, to have a dialogue, what you think, which waste should be in that container and which waste should be in the other container. Because that is the normal way to do it. And I don't believe so much in punishment, because this is the way of the system which must be forced by the will from the people to do it. It's very difficult to force people to do something they will be resistant to. So a combination of economical incentives in the first part, in order to collect clean material, and then more and more of education and awareness campaigning. I think that will be the solution and necessary to do.
Okay, thank you. But in our country, mostly goodwill is not enough to do the right things. And for example, neighboring country like China, I know that they have put some cameras in the waste storage area, so they see who is doing what and where do they put it. So are there any other ways or technologies that allows to motivate people to sort the waste in a proper way?
Well, of course, there are always technologies. There are some quite unique experience that we have, for example, in Sweden and other parts of Europe, where, for example, the chute where you put the waste is combined to your cell phone, for example. So it's only yourself who can use this chute for the very moment, and such things are there. But most of the time, these systems are quite expensive, and there are also difficulties in running because of temperature and things like that. So I would say that at least as a start, instead of investing a lot of money in such ingenious technology, I think you can try more and more to educate people and have people being friendly when it comes to doing their waste separation. Also, I think it is important to give feedback to people so they understand if we get good result, to tell them this was a result of your efforts.
Yeah.
Not only tell them you have to do that, but you also have to tell people what you really achieved, and
Yeah.
that it was because of their efforts. So it's a combination.
Okay.
But punishment is difficult because you come into also privacy issues and difficult things.
Okay, I see. So in Spain, they had some pilot project when it comes to motivating people to segregate the waste in the source properly. So in those regions where separation rate was good, the tariff for the waste disposal was less.
Yeah.
And then in the regions where waste separation was bad in the source, they were having higher prices for waste disposal than in the regions where the separation rate was good.
Yes.
So maybe this could be used as well.
Absolutely, and we have more or less a similar system in Sweden, where, for example, owner of a house,
Yes.
then they can choose whether they want only to have one container where they drop everything, 2 containers, or even 4 containers, depending on how many fractions they would like to separate. And the system is like this, that is cheaper to have the more container you have
Oh, interesting.
than
Yes.
having the one container. That is also kind of economical incentives that could quite easily be introduced.
Okay, so in Astana, this all collected waste goes to the sorting line,
Yes.
located outside of the city, near the landfill site. They are sorting out waste from all bins, from the yellow container and from green one. Actually, it should be like only yellow containers waste should be sent to this sorting line. But since the separation rate is not good in the source, they are doing both, so they are spending a lot of energy. And we are using manually, like people are working there, around 35 people are working in this sorting line facility. They are manually sorting out cardboard, glass, aluminum cans. They're sorting out PET bottles and polyethylene bags. What do you think about this sorting line? Do you see it as an up-to-date technology? And what is advantages or disadvantages of the sorting line? And yes, please, can you tell me your opinion?
Well, I would say that this kind of facility, which we saw here in Astana, it's kind of a mixture of what we call mechanical biological treatment and material recycling facility. And it's based on technology that was developed in Western Europe in the 80s and then spread out in other parts of Europe and also other parts of the world. But it's quite an old technology, a little bit old-fashioned, I would say. And today, very few build this kind of plant anymore. And the reason is, of course, that the efficiency, how much you receive in terms of recycled material, is quite low, and the quality is even worse, which means that the income from selling of this recycled material normally is quite low. So I would say that unfortunately this is not the state-of-the-art technology for the sorting, how it could be sorted. There are today more advanced technology, of course, than it used to be in the past. And also the working environment for those people picking up waste on these conveyor belts are quite a bad experience to work with. But I think the main problem is that waste is being mixed in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Once it's mixed, it's difficult to sort out clean material. And that's the reason why I propose that, for example, for clean material which you really want to recycle, like the PET bottles, for example, it should be collected separately before it ends up in the bins.
Okay, thank you. So is there any other automated technologies for separation of the waste in the sorting line?
Absolutely, there are today evolving much more advanced technology where we are using laser system in order to separate waste from each other, and such development are taking place. But I see that as more like a complement to sorting from the very beginning, because it's always better to have cardboard, paper, glass, plastic, etc., sorting separately before you put it into a bin. Then, of course, if you want to, you can sort it once more, what happens in the bin. That's possible. And one important thing also is to, as early as possible in the waste flow, to sort out food waste, which otherwise will contaminate the whole waste stream. And we also saw from the experience here in Astana that glass is not separately collected, which means that glass will contaminate the whole recycled material in the sorting facility. So you will find small glass fractions in plastic, in paper, etc.
Yeah.
So therefore, glass also have to be separately collected.
That is true. When it comes to glass, there are some already plans that there should be separate bin for
Yes.
glass because of the weight.
Yes.
It's heavy compared with PET bottles and other types of waste.
Exactly. But also because of recyclability.
Yes. So you also know that near the sorting line, there is land allotted for composting technology, for composting of food waste.
Yes.
So what do you think about this technology, like composting? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Is it worse to do composting, or is it worse to rethink and review this decision? Because we still have some time, I think to change this technology, because it's not started yet, even though a decision was made. But composting is not being done yet because we don't have yet separate collection of food waste in the source.
Mm-hmm.
There were some waste containers installed for food waste, but they are not operational now.
I see. Well, I think the direction in order to separate food waste at source is absolutely correct. It's a very good initiative to go in that direction, and we can see that all over the world the same is happening everywhere, because everybody understands that it's not a good way to mix the food waste into all the recyclables, etc. And also from this food waste you can gain also a compost which can be used on land as a fertilizer and so on. So far that is a good direction. However, when you wanted to introduce that, it might create some challenges, because it's not so easy actually to receive a very good, clean food waste collected. So again, it will be needed a lot of awareness raising campaigns and good oversight of the collection system. Once you collected the food waste, there are today more and more people around the globe are looking into alternatives when it comes to the treatment. Traditionally, you treated this in a compost plant, and then you sort out the material and use it on land, and so on. And of course, you can do that. This is a technology we know since long, but more and more they are built not only in Europe, but also in Australia and in the US and other parts, also South America, digestion facilities instead, where you put the collected food waste in a digester, which means that you, during anaerobic conditions, decompose the waste. And through this digestion facility, you will receive a digestate, which can be used as a compost, and you will receive biogas, which can be used as an alternative energy source for electricity generation or heat generation, or even it can be upgraded to natural gas standard and use it for trucks and cars, which we do in Sweden, for example, and also in Germany and Denmark and other places. So I would suggest that perhaps the city can at least evaluate that as an alternative once you still didn't build the compost plant, so you are not there. So there are some time to think about to maybe change the ambition, because this is a city with large ambitions, and perhaps one should try to investigate an even more modern technology than compost technology. It's not something wrong with compost technology, but digestion is more advanced and it's environmental better.
Okay. Okay. So also, you know that there is a landfill site. So
Yes.
around 90% of the waste goes to the landfill. So we have two cells in Astana. One cell is already full, and recultivation is done there. And then second cell is now being filled up. So how this issue could be solved? It's worth to mention that they have a gas collection there, and filtrate also is being extracted, separated and treated. So what could be the solution for this problem? Because the population of the city is increasing, and we have really high ambitions. As you can see, the city is ambitious city, kind of futuristic city. We have really state-of-the-art buildings. But still we are sending 90% of the waste to the landfill.
That's also the same kind of recognition I did when I visited the plant, that I felt that it should be more ambitions in order to resolve the problem with the landfill. I think there are different issues over there. It's a good thing that in the new cell now operating, they are collecting also landfill gas. It goes to a flare, and that kind of gas can also be utilized actually in for generation of electricity in electric motor as a fuel. I was also surprised a little bit that there was no separate gas collection in the old landfill site, and there's a huge amount of probably emission of methane gases from that plant, and I would suggest that quite urgently actually start to collect landfill gas from the old landfill site, because that will be generated for decades, long time, and it will pollute the air and the atmosphere and the climate as well. And it's not so difficult to install such a unit, since there is already some piping earth-sized. But then we come to the real large problem, what to do with the large volume which goes to the landfill site. And as said before, there is now a combination of efforts which have to be taken, more advanced sorting of plastic waste, for example, in the very beginning, introducing of separate collection of food waste, but still there will be quite a lot of residues which will not be recycled. So if it's not 90%, hopefully it may be only 50% or 30%, I don't know, but still there will be a lot. And in modern technology today, most countries invest in some kind of waste-to-energy facilities. We see that now all over the world, in China, in the Middle East, in oil-rich countries like Saudi Arabia and Dubai and Oman. They are building waste-to-energy plant in order to solve the problem to really get rid of the waste which is now blowing around, and you have a lot of birds and it smells and so on. It will be totally different. So this is something I would suggest that one think about. You have time, you don't have to build this next year, but within 10 years from now, your landfill will be filled up. So in this time period, such a facility obviously must be an opportunity.
Okay, so it's interesting that these oil-rich countries are investing in this kind of waste-to-energy technologies. Do you know any reason why they're doing it?
I think the main reason is that they see that having this kind of old landfill site is a little bit outdated. You really don't have environmental control of what is in the landfill. By having it incinerated, you get the inert material. You really destroy all the dangerous items in the waste. And also the volume of rest coming from the incinerator is only 10%, and that coming, as we see today, going to the landfill site. So it's reduced also the space which is needed for landfill.
So why do you think these oil-rich countries are investing in waste to energy? Because when we propose this technology to other governmental organizations, most of the time they say that we have huge oil resources, we have gas, we have cheap coal, and the energy cost is quite low here because we have our own resources. And this technology needs high capital investments. So why these countries are doing that, even though they also have oil resources?
Exactly. Of course, when you build a waste energy plant, you generate energy in terms of electricity, sometimes also heat. If you have a district heating system, then you will have a very high energy efficiency in this plant, and I assume you have district heating here in Astana, for example. I think the main observation is that those countries are building this facility. We also see that in former Eastern Europe, like countries like Poland, for example, because it's not only an issue about energy, it's also an issue about waste management. They want to have a better control over the waste. They don't like to put the uncontrolled waste anymore in the landfill. And by doing this in the waste energy plant, you have inert material in the end product. You have really destruction of all the difficult and hazardous and healthy problematic items in the waste. So it's much more better from the environment. And you reduce the outlet of methane gases also from the landfill site. So I think it's a combination of environmental and energy issues.
Also, they can save some oil resources while they're investing in this.
Absolutely, because while you invest in this, you can postpone the use of your own natural resources like oil and coal and use it later on.
Yes, right. So here we have a private company operating landfill, and there is a conflict of interest, let's say. Maybe they are not much interested that this waste to energy technology will be implemented here. Also, we have some associations working in a waste area. They are resisting this waste to energy technology. So in the case of Astana, what do you think, how it could be done, this technology, how it could be implemented?
Yes. I think in the past there was very much a discussion that waste to energy was opposite to recycling, and therefore it created conflicts much of the time. But what we can see now, not only in Europe but also in other parts of the world, that recycling and waste to energy comes together. They are interaction, because there will always be a lot of residues from recycling, and everything cannot be recycled or shouldn't be recycled actually, because it's dangerous or hazardous or whatever, and bad quality. So there will be a need for a final solution for maybe 30, 35, 40% of the waste. That is the calculation from European point of view. So therefore I cannot see really there should be a conflict of interest between recyclers and those who wanted to operate the waste to energy plants. Then of course those people who operate the existing landfill site might be not so happy about that, but perhaps they should be the people who invest in the new facility.
So the operator of the landfill should invest in this technology?
That could be an alternative anyway. Why not?
Okay. So yes, and we touched in the first part of our conversation that there should be clean material and there should be separate collection of the waste.
Yes.
Do you think deposit refund system would be a good solution for this issue?
We have in Europe and elsewhere very good experience of deposit fee system, because it creates very good incentives. We have large collection rates, high collection rates and clean materials. However, it's quite a complicated system, and it creates a lot of transactions of economical means. So perhaps in order to start the system, one should think about whether there are other alternatives in the very beginning, at least, because if you go from today's system directly to a deposit fee system, it's quite complicated. Maybe, I think, in the end, maybe in 5-10 years from now, I think you will have a different deposit fee system. But for next year or the next year after that, perhaps one should investigate a stepwise other system which still will increase the separate collection before the bins.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank
you.
you for your time. Yes.
Thank you.